So now we're getting into Tampa, Florida, as far as my education is concerned. This is Tampa, Florida, early 90s, late 80s, 88, 89, 90. And at this point, we've started to see a lot of changes go on in drumming, in heavy metal drumming in general. Like a lot of the guys are starting to catch up. You no longer just have 3 or 4 dudes that are doing this stuff, but you're about to have far less the way this goes. So I call this like the Pete Sandoval era, is named after the guy that kind of took the flailing blast beat mess from the early 80s and kind of turned it into a technique. And at this point in time, you really start to see the blast beat look more like a single stroke roll between different limbs. What is a single stroke roll? Right, left, right, left, right, left. And this is what you're starting to see primarily between the right foot, left hand. So for the sake of the history of it, because who doesn't love history, I'm going to use my right hand on my left hi-hat. Because at this point in time, people didn't have a cable hi-hat set up as much as we do now. And we were still kind of stuck in real basic rock and roll setup. Right hand up and over on the hi-hat, left hand underneath on the snare. As I said earlier, what you start seeing in this is the right hand is staying the same, but your left hand and your right foot are starting to catch up. So, traditional blast beat, aka the single foot, also aka the 1 foot. 16th notes on the right foot, 16th notes on the left hand, stacked, unison. 16th notes on the left hand on the upbeat. Looks like this. To slow that down, you'd get something that you would see in a lot of black metal bands. If you kind of slow it down, it starts to resemble the thrash metal beat again. So we're going to bring that back just a tiny bit. Looks like this. Looks really similar, but there's all kinds of different things going on. It's a different muscle group because the slower you get, it's almost like the more leg you have to use, almost the more amount of arm and shoulder you have to use. It's as you get better at doing this stuff, it's almost easier to go fast because you start going just ankles, just wrists. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go from the thrash beat into the modern day, modern for now, single foot blast beat like this. That's kind of it. It is really difficult to kind of make those gear changes because you're dealing with 2. But that is essentially the single foot, 1 foot blast beat. Right, left, right, left. There is a way that this becomes kind of easier, kind of not easier, that we'll approach a little bit later. One of the things that were really common with the single foot blast beat is they weren't really pushing the BPMs that they were pushing as we got into the late 90s, early 2000s, was you were getting a lot more texture with your timing. You might have what we at the time were calling straight or triplet. So straight is going to look like this. Triplet is going to look more like this. It was a common thing to have a lot of gallopy guitarists, which you would get, you get this on the ride bell quite a bit too. Straight. So again, straight into triplet. So to wrap up the single foot, 1 foot blast beat, it's important to note that 1 foot, single foot, really only means 16th notes with the right or left foot. 1 again, a 2 again, a 3 again, a 4 again. And the faster you go, the smaller it gets, the kind of quieter it gets, but this is why we use triggers. So really what you start to see is more of a hand and foot linear pattern. Right foot, left hand, left foot, left hand, left foot, right hand, so forth, which we will cover later on down the line.